JulezJP. I'm here to give everyone a little intro. We're so excited for you to be here to hear what we have in store. So we're going to have Valorant first, followed by League of Legends, and then a quick announcement from 2XKO, and then rounding out our time together will be Riftbound and TFT together. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to the Valorant team.
Hi everyone, we're Valorant. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Ashley and I'm one of the global community managers for Valorant. And I'm here today with
Ryan Recto, agent sound designer on Valorant. And we're going to be going through designing ability sounds through the lens of mix. So we're going to go showing about the music and the art and how we made that into mix.
So if you haven't seen, is the video, you want to press?
We've got the MVP crew today. Yeah, you can tell the others I said that.
Haley, I can heal you again.
What a heal!
You saved my life. Oh, nice. Speed boosting myself. I stunned myself! Every piece of his util gives you an assist.
What a wingman.
If anyone needs an energy boost out there, I've got you.
Yo, Keo, put the music on.
Everybody, listen to some music.
The music is so cute when you're getting healed.
Group heal, group heal.
Oh no! Oopsie.
You broke it.
I did.
Bravo, bravo. Let's stay in sync. Can't heal.
Yo, wake up. It's your alarm clock, bro.
You look so devious.
Rubbing my hands together. It's a little chilly out here today, you know? Take back sight and go.
All right, tell us a little bit more about what we just saw.
Yeah, so that was mix. And as you can see, there's a lot of music cues in there and a lot of sound effects that was bass driven. So basically, he's a sonic radiant from Croatia. And his background is like, he's kind of like this bedroom producer. And I had to find ways to make music as it was mixed and put them into the ability sounds. And that's quite a challenge. And so here's mix, and we're going to go through all the music stuff and then show how I break it down into each ability. And first things first, Gigi is not here today to show off some art, but I'm going to be representing some art pieces as well. And so what is a Nora? So basically, a Nora is an internal dev name that we created, and this is how we visualize sound pressure. I fed the team like visuals of like sounds and sound pressure, and this Nora is a core raw representation of mixed radionite energy. And if you look closely, you'll see it throughout all of his abilities, even through like his fingers and everything. That's his sonic radiance. And how do we get the name Nora? Well, this was Mix's aura in the beginning, and we needed a cool, catchy name to it. So Nancy Kim, concept artist, created the Nora, and we just mixed the two words, Nancy and aura. So Nora.
I love that.
Yeah, so big ups to Nancy Kim. And we're going into the feedback loop. This is where we got a lot of inspiration on how to fuse audio with art. And there's so much back and forth and so much inspiration. It was definitely the funnest part of the game. So here's a visual representation of a sound. I fed the team some plugins that I have, some waveforms, even some vector scopes, and I show them what a sine wave looked like and a sawtooth. And this is a stylized representation of a sine wave, as you see on the left. It's the green one, and the right one is a sawtooth wave. And remember these two waveforms because they're pretty important for his abilities. And that brings me into my synesthesia. One of the first parts of the development of Mix was this art of power.
Wait, what's synesthesia?
Oh, well, synesthesia is like if I see a certain color, I hear certain sounds in my head. And the way I translate that to you guys in your ears is I create the sound based on the color within my own synthesizers. So I live and breathe synesthesia. I see colors and I hear sounds as well. So it kind of drives me crazy.
Yeah, I bet.
But anyways, so the red, if you see, I actually think of red as a brash color, a little bit aggressive. And then I see the green as a more of like a calming sine wave type of sound. But what I'm gonna show you right now is what I fed the team is the red sound. Yeah, I hope you guys like that bass.
The bass in here is crazy.
Yeah, I'm such a bass head, so you're gonna hear that throughout here. But anyways, once I fed them that sound, that key sound of red, I also fed them the sawtooth waveform in Serum, and they designed the visual cue for red as a sawtooth, as you can see on the right, the far right. And on the flip side, I'm showing you the sine wave for green. This is what I hear when I see green, and it's supposed to be calming, and it's supposed to be for a heal. Yes. Thank you. So you see the differences, or actually hear the differences, right? Mm-hmm. And that brings us to the impulse. How many of you know what the impulse is?
One of Mix's new abilities, right?
Yeah, this is actually it's an impulse, which you can equip this impulse little synthesizer little thing, and you can switch from concuss to heal. And the way he does this is he infuses his radionite into this synthesizer box, and he's able to filter out certain waveforms. And again, here's the sawtooth for the concuss, and we're using sharp shapes here, as well as the pentagon graphics to simulate the deep blast of a subwoofer. It's kind of like our stylized rendition of a subwoofer in a cool way. And on the other side, you can see the heel, circular, a little bit more smoother flowing, and you're about to see the differences on the music part. So with this impulse, as you can see, there's a pulsing rhythm in each blast, right? So the challenge was, how do I put music into this impulse? And since I'm a big EDM fan, and you are too, right?
I am.
Yep, so we're both bass heads. Hope you guys can understand this, but I've written the music on 120 beats per minute. And I left 120 beats per minute for the heel portion because that's a lot faster, and it's supposed to get you up and jumping, right? And then for the concuss, I had to do something different. So the polarizing difference is I broke it down. So if you imagine an EDM song where there's a drop and then people start headbanging, that's what I wanted to evoke for the concuss, you know? You headbang so hard that you get concussed.
All right, let's hear it.
So here it is. Thank you all. Thank you all. So on the last portion of that video, I'm showing a plugin where I used the sounds to emulate that it's coming from the impulse. So if you think about a little speaker, I guess, you know? And so now I'm gonna show you what the heel sounds like. It's supposed to be very different, sine wavy, and the modulation of the volume is gonna be smoother than the concuss. And this is supposed to get you up and jumping, uplifting, you know, get your vibes up, you know? So he's definitely a vibe controller, so here's the uplifting one. And the difference, listen to the difference. So that's the difference between the concuss and the heel and how I compose the music. And the challenge here now is to how do we bring that into the game, right? Because those were full-on loops. Like, this is not Spotify or anything, but, you know, once we get into the game, I had to balance gameplay integrity. You know, we got to keep things at a certain level and a certain, like, kind of like busyness, right? So if I dial that down, this is how it sounds like in game. And listen to the equipped idols. Very healing, right? Get healing. That's a concuss. Thank you. And that was the basis of our sound design and audio design. As you can see, there was like an oscilloscope on that impulse. And we're gonna go into the next one, which is the smoke, the waveform. Now, one of the challenges was how do we make sound turn into a smoke? Because sound is not, like, it's literally not physical. You cannot see it, but we had to translate that into a visual form. So on the left, you can see some concepts here where we tried using waveforms or a paragraphic EQ to grow and form a smoke. Now that didn't quite work, so what was the magic word? Nora. So the middle, that's where we use the Nora again to expand upwards and create this smoke. So it looks really smooth, and on the right, you can actually see the Nora at its core. And pay attention to the colors because this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing greens and a little bit of hues of purple, and it's kind of smooth and kind of idle. And the way I created sound for this was I started off with a synthesizer, again. As you know, mix is actually based off of a lot of synthesizers. I try to keep that true. So for the smoke, I created this synthesizer, but the synthesizer itself didn't quite fit in with the smoke. So by using a noise generator, I created this kind of like whipped cream type of sound so that it like kind of cloudies up the synthesizer. And what you're gonna hear here is me making the pads and then putting the cloud on it.
Yeah, you can kind of hear like the cloudy like whoosh around it.
Exactly, yeah. Thank you. And so that cloudiness and that synth drove forward the sound of the smoke, right? So I got these two elements. How am I going to put that into the rest of the abilities? And how am I going to make that musical? So if you know in the equips, there's like about 1 or 2 beats in an equip. right? So I would loop it over and over again and make a beat out of it, or play some notes on it, and added the whipped cream on top of it. And that was the basis for all of his smoke sounds. So throughout his ability kit for the smokes, you're gonna hear a bunch of whipped cream and synths.
Smoke's up.
Yeah, so you can hear there the comparison of the left video and the right video at the same time, and how it was brought into the game. And you guys didn't even notice, like when he pulls up the map, there's actually this background beat like you're outside of a club actually. So that's another way we brought some music into his smoke ability. And that brings us to the harmonize, never fight alone. And we call this the harmonize because as mix, you're able to stim a player or your own teammate and yourself, and that way you are harmonized and resonant. And the challenge with this one was how do we show waveforms as a stem on the, as you can see on the edges of the screen, we see this, the basic stem and then the waveforms. So with this one, this was actually a fluke because I created the sound first, and then the art team just did their thing and tailored it to my sound, whether that's from the attack to the decay and the release. And I showed them some vector scopes of waveforms and some DJ software, you know, as it scrolls up. So it's kind of reminiscent of that because he's kind of like a DJ. So that's the visual language for our stem buff. And as you can see, like when he's stemming himself, the challenge there was how do I squeeze music in that small amount of time? It's almost like a one beat self-equip, right? So there's not a lot of room for me. So I went to the drawing board and I kind of like looped it over and over again to find a musical phrase for it. And another challenge was I wanted to clear the soundscape of any kind of forward moving sounds because I wanted to have the high end and the low end, and just those two frequencies, right? Because when you're like busy in gameplay, you don't want to be crowded with like foreground sounds. So what I did here was I created some anticipation with hi-hat rolls and used the bass wobble to give you that feeling that you are stemmed. So here's that loop. Yeah, so that's the vibeness of the stem. You know, hope you guys feel that bass in here. And speaking of bass, this is the bass quake. This is my favorite ability of his kit because a lot of sound design went into this. It took a while to find what the ultimate should sound like. Like how do we differentiate the ult from the other abilities, right? I'm using synths, I'm using music. How do we make this even go harder, right? So I went back to the drawing board, listened to a lot of EDM, day in, day out, and I was like, okay, let me loop his equip again and make a beat out of it. So this is the beat that I made out of the equip. Yeah. And, and back to the inspiration and feedback loop. So I showed this to the team and they were like really jamming to this. You know, they're my vibe check. It's very exciting to hear this stuff in the beginning as concept, but for Valorant, we have to dial it down because Valorant is definitely a attack shooter where audio is crucial for gameplay tells. So here's the kind of like the, not watered down, but like balanced with gameplay version. And pay attention to the bass during his ult, because that was the driving factor and the starting point of his ult sounds. ready. That's so bassy. All right, thank you. And so the second part of this was if you get clapped from the bass quake, funny. Anyways, when you get clapped, you get deafened, right? It's kind of like fade, you get deafened and you hear certain things in your headphones. And for mix, this was kind of a challenge because at first I used the heartbeat because when I imagine myself getting deaf, I kind of hear my heartbeat and my blood flowing through my head. You know, do you get that sometimes?
Yeah, like your other senses are heightened.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I spent so much time in front of a speaker at raves, and it really rings my ears. So the way I created the deafen was I got the heartbeat and turned it into a synthesizer. And then I found a rhythm that fit the theme. So again, I think it was like 120 beats per minute again. And then I noticed that I wanted to disorient you with some high-end frequency, right? So I have this bass throb and then this hi-hat that disorients you. So here's the deafen. Hopefully you guys can feel it. Listen to this! Yeah, I always like getting deafened by this ult, but it's not good for my rank.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't mind getting hit by this ult.
Only if you want to D-rank. Anyways, since you listened to a couple of pieces of music, I wanted to share something that I was very proud of, and the team was like really vibed up against this song here. I probably made like upwards of 20 to 30 tracks for all of his abilities, but the one that stood out to me was his concuss outtake music, and no one outside Riot has heard this yet, so you guys will be the ones that will hear it. And I'm so honored to show this to you because it sounds so sick. So the thought process behind this was the impulse has materials, right? It has a glass oscilloscope or a screen, and then it has these switching mechanisms in here where you can hear the switches and stuff. And I wanted the radionite to start poking at the glass while it's blasting. So here's all the elements in this concuss outtake music just for you guys. Quiet. Yeah, I see you guys bobbing your heads out there.
Should we host a rave after this?
I really want to. Honestly, Mix, like we resonate together. Like I'm a sound designer and a music person, so it was only fitting for me to create this sound on Mix. And so thank you everyone for listening to my spiel about music and vibes and art into Mix, you know. First and foremost, Valorant is a competitive game, so we have to abide by competitive integrity. I don't want to be playing my ranked game and being deafened by like so many different things. So we had to go back to the drawing board for everything with gameplay and find that right balance.
Yeah, if we kept all that music in the game, our players would just be throwing it back in the middle of rounds.
Exactly. I mean, it's cool and all, but it's better to keep the competitive integrity. And I hope you guys enjoyed his music and everything. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all.
Thank you so much for having us. Now I'd like to welcome League of Legends.
All right, can we give it up one more time for our friends on Valorant? Was that sick or what? The amount of love and attention to detail that goes into creating these agents, that only for me to go like 2 and 15 is incredible. All right. So, thank you all for coming today. We are the League of Legends team, and we are here to talk to you today about Shyvana's update. All right. So, my name is Lilu. I am the Global Community Manager on League of Legends, and I will let all of you fine humans introduce yourselves.
Hey folks, my name is Ed, and I'm the product lead on Champions for League of Legends.
Hey everybody, I'm River. I'm one of the writers for League of Legends.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm the game design director for League of Legends.
All right. So, as I mentioned today, we're here to talk to you about Shyvana. Doesn't she look sick? Like. Awesome. So, why don't you guys quickly explain to the crowd kind of like how you were a part of Shyvana's update?
Yeah, so then I can talk a little bit about kind of product's role for this. A lot of the times we're kind of just doing two things. One, we're trying to make sure that we have this strategic vision for the team. And then two, we're just trying to make sure we're shepherding all in the right direction, that we're all working together to accomplish those goals. So that's roughly kind of what product is overseeing at that point. Something we kind of say is we create the sandbox for folks to play in, but then we let our like world-class, very talented devs work within that sandbox.
Yeah, when we're updating Champions, narrative is basically taking what already exists and what people love about this character, her story, her identity, and figuring out how do we update that and bring that up to speed, both in VO and in-game expressions, and also around it, and also how those things now dovetail with other crafts like design, like art, etc. So a lot of VO, a lot of bios, things like that.
And then, yeah, game design for this was figuring out which abilities we wanted to update and how we wanted to update them. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's start with you, Ed. What goes into such like a comprehensive update? Because we really touched like Shyvana's visuals, her gameplay, even her narrative. So how do you start on that?
Yeah, I'll take a step back and talk about like generally what we think about when thinking about an update. So League is a game that's been around for a while now. You know, if they were a teen, they can technically drive now. So that means there's a pretty big divergence in terms of the art asset quality from something that was made like 15, 16 years ago versus something today. And so we always kind of want our game to feel modern, fresh. And so like the visual modernity is one gauge that we think about when updating a champion. And then the other one is also something that has changed over time is kind of the gameplay in League, the meta, what it takes to succeed from a kit perspective. So then it's like design is another vector. So oftentimes we start by evaluating those two, trying to figure out what needs to be updated and working through that. There are also just a lot of other elements to a champion, such as splash, narrative, VO, that we also want to make sure is at a modern quality. So we want to take all of that into account when updating a champion like Shyvana.
Yeah, and I think Ed touched on a lot of this already, but it's also, when it comes to narrative and VO, this is a champ that came out a very long time ago when our voice scripts look very different. The way that we do VO and expressions in game looks really different. And also the way that the larger Runeterra has developed over that time looks really different too. So when we're looking at updating a champion like Shyvana, like I mentioned before, it's finding the core of that character and what makes her cool and special, what makes people love her, and then how do we bring that up to a modern quality standard? How do we then expand that into a full voice script instead of however many lines she had before? She has a lot more now, which is awesome. And how do we give her a level of verisimilitude as a character and as a person in this world that honors what that core was and what that core is, and gives us also opportunities to expand that into the future.
And then, yeah, with design, I mean, like River was saying, we're looking for what the core of her gameplay experience is and what parts we want to lean into more or what parts we want to update and modernize. Like keeping her identity as a a diver, juggernaut, but then looking at some of her individual abilities, like her Q, and bringing those up to more like modern design standards and best practices for our champions.
Awesome, thank you all. So can you tell us a little bit more about how all of you like collaborated together to make this work? Because I don't imagine building a champion is like everyone's just doing their own thing and then you stick it all together at the end.
Yeah, I'll talk about our general kind of process. So there are, I'd say, like 2 major phases when we're thinking about development like this, and this is also true for like new champions. And so this first phase is called DNA, which is for design, narrative, and art. So it's kind of these 3 pillars who are working pretty much together every day. And they're really trying to figure out what is the kind of the bones or essence of the champion. They'll collaborate, they'll spin ideas off of each other. One really good example of this is then design was like, hey, human form Shyvana doesn't have this really strong silhouette that makes her unique within the roster, so it can be a little more difficult for gameplay clarity. And so then design and art collaborated to add a tail to her in human form, and that really helped solve that problem. So that's kind of one example of folks collaborating pretty early. As you kind of get through that, as you kind of lock down the concept of what she is generally going to look like, the basic elements of her abilities, then you start bringing on more folks. Then you start bringing on like your 3D artist, your VFX, and that's when the collaboration starts across like a larger group of folks. And we'll usually have things like bi-weekly reviews. Folks will then show, hey, this is the VFX for her E, and then design might be like, oh, that looks fantastic. But maybe we need, to change the colors here or there so that it pops a little on the map, or maybe it pops too much. There's a lot of design considerations like that. But it is a lot of collaboration because it's a big team, and you all want to make sure that you're kind of rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, and to take Ed's example from before about this, okay, so we need human Shyvana to have a more distinct silhouette, so she has a tail. So then coming from narrative, that then becomes, okay, what does a person moving through worlds with this tail look like, right? Or like, she's very distinctly visually not human. How does that change how she perceives the world, how she's treated by the world, her outlook, and where are places we can reinforce and yes and express that in her story and in her VO and in sort of how that narrative interfaces with every other discipline. Because narrative isn't just stored in the VO. Narrative is stored in everything about the character, the identity, the gameplay fantasy. It's really fun for that reason, but also it means it does require a lot of very close collaboration. So it's, being in these rooms with these other crafts and seeing where the opportunity spaces are based on these decisions that are made holistically for the overall experience of the character, and then finding cool ways to tell stories from them and influence the story that way.
Yeah, I mean, Ed and River said most of it, but making sure that everyone's rowing in the same direction. Like if, for example, if we're wanting Shyvana to be this like dragon who more kind of gets in your face and is more melee focused than the rest of the dragons, or than most of the other dragons we have represented, then like, okay, how do the abilities, how does the gameplay support that? What do the abilities need to do to facilitate that? Like whether that's getting more health from a shield or the R fearing so that it's safer to jump into the team and be in melee in that way. Yeah, just considerations of how we design and update those abilities to all kind of hit the same goal.
Awesome, thank you. So I do know that with Shyvana is obviously a champion that a lot of League players have come to love over the years. So for something that's so near and dear to so many people, how do you approach the process of updating a champion in the sense of like, there are a lot of like things I imagine you want to keep for those players that love Shyvana, but also improve upon to bring it up to like modern League standards like you were saying earlier. So for Shyvana specifically, were there any core parts of her kit that you thought were really important to keep throughout her update?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because you do have Shyvana mains who have spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours on the champion.
Do we have any Shyvana mains in the audience? Let's go!
Yeah.
So it is always kind of this balance of like, if you change too much, then it's like another champion, but if you change too little, then it doesn't feel as meaningful. So I think that's a balance we're always trying to figure out. For Shyvana in particular, I think we really wanted to preserve that identity of a half dragon who turns into a full dragon, and to make sure that really sung for her. Something that we were kind of on the fence about early was then turning her from like a wyvern, so kind of like a dragon's with her front arms attached to those wings, into more of like what you might consider a Western dragon, which is like those 4 legs plus those wings. We felt like that. Thank you. We felt like that just made her more like majestic, terrifying. It really sold the fantasy of being this big, powerful dragon. We were a little concerned though, because players had spent thousands of hours in this other version, but that was something that we really wanted to improve on because we really wanted to sell that dragon fantasy visually.
I think narratively, she's such an interesting and cool character. I think she represents a really unique corner of our champion roster and our IP, which is, someone who exists as a shapeshifter, sort of between 2 forms, on the outskirts of Demacia, and has a very different relationship to Demacia than pretty much every other Demacian champion we have. And narratively, we really wanted her to still feel really strong and really powerful, have that inner fire and external fire that makes her feel like a really cool, dynamic warrior. She's, and finding then ways to, like, how does that person, exist in the world? How does it impact her relationship with other people? And her relationship to her cause and to, the people she fights alongside. That's really important to preserve and then also to expand on. And I think players have had a long time with the sort of older version of the champion, and we really wanted to narratively not actually change too much of it, because that was, I think, a part of her that was already very strong. And it was more about, okay, how do we just make this sing in a new and expanded and updated way? But most of that, like, we really went in not wanting to, like, change her lore too fundamentally.
So diving in as a dragon, keeping her identity as a diver, juggernaut like Hecarim or Jarvan, and then looking to update some of her abilities that were, we felt like they were less satisfying or more like older, antiquated design. So her passive being less binary on dragons and more like something that can scale throughout the game from different sources. Her Q being having some more skill expression with the multi-tapping. But the thing we were looking to keep was really the like dive in, transform into a dragon.
So actually, I am curious from like a game design perspective, other than like just the pure pun of dragons with scaling, is that like something that we're looking to bring out in dragons, or is there a reason like why that manifests in dragon champions?
Sorry, what's the question exactly?
So like, is there a reason like why we lean into like having dragon champions like Smolder or Aurelion Sol and Shyvana like have scales?
I mean, I think that part of the fantasy of playing as a dragon is getting to be this like really powerful, dominating, overwhelming force, and so it just kind of lends itself naturally to mechanics that scale over the course of the game and let you get really unstoppable.
Awesome.
Also, It's a great pun.
It is a really good pun.
Mostly puns.
So River, you mentioned that a lot of like what went into Shyvana's update from a narrative perspective was just kind of preserving that really interesting story that she has and that players have come to love over the years. Were there any ways that manifested in her updated visuals or gameplay or kit?
Yeah, so we had some really fun opportunities. I remember when we were discussing, like, I think it was one of the VFX meetings, and Jarvan gives Shyvana this like little crest to represent, like, oh no, you're with us, you're one of us, and it's on the front of her armor, and it was like really cool. We got to represent that in her W shield. You can see like a little outline of it. So we got to like have some fun trying to bring in those elements of her story and of her connections with other characters in that way, and that was really fun. But yeah, like I think, like I said, narrative is expressed in all these different disciplines in different ways and connects with those in different ways. And so mechanically, right, like this idea that she is, transforming back and forth. She's not one form or the other. She is both. She is equally dragon and not, you know. Mechanically also makes a lot of sense and feels like a connective tissue sort of between a lot of those different elements that it tells the story in that way too. And I think her growing stronger, growing more powerful, the more confident she gets, the more she stacks, the more you play, makes a lot of sense and feels very true to her character as well. Like growing in that confidence, that sense of self, that sense of power, and also that comfort in being what she is completely.
Awesome, I love that. So I guess the next question I have for you all is, having worked on Shyvana for a long time and with this update, were there any aspects of Shyvana that you came to appreciate more deeply, or maybe ones that like you just didn't know that you discovered along the way?
Yeah, I'll actually echo a little bit of what kind of Ben mentioned in terms of like that scaling aspect, because I think the fantasy of this powerful dragon is a little tough to achieve in a game like League of Legends, which is very competitively focused, things like that. When you kind of think of a dragon, you think like, oh, you're super powerful, you're really tanky, you're like this raid boss that can 1v9. But then if you're in a competitive 5v5 game where everyone is kind of supposed to have equal power or ability to influence a match, there's kind of like there's a disconnect there in terms of what you expect a dragon to do versus what this game might allow you to do from a balance perspective. And so there's such a lot of work then around the balancing for Shyvana being able to turn into a dragon, like how we balance her fury generation, all the things that go into it. So I think that kind of really opened my eyes and made me kind of appreciate that. It's like a very elegant way to still make you feel very powerful in these certain elements and feel like a dragon, but still work in a really competitive game like League of Legends.
Well, working on Shyvana forced me to jungle, so...
I'm sorry, that's tough. That's a tough one.
Thank you. I appreciate it, thank you. I'm still not good. I'm still somewhere in iron. That's fine, I'm a writer, I don't need to be good at this game. No, but in general, like, I think, I liked her as a character before I started working on her, but it was sort of like, I liked her sort of from afar. And I think working on Shyvana just gave me such a deep appreciation for her and for her, like I said, unique perspective when it comes to, the larger story of Runeterra and Demacia in particular. And I don't know, she's really sort of become narratively like one of my favorite characters in Runeterra. I just feel like she has so much to love and so much to resonate with deeply, and she's such an interesting person that I think really grew over the course of working on this project.
So for me, I play a lot of strategy games, and I really like champions that can build a wide variety of items. So I like when I'm playing Shyvana that I have a lot of the item catalog available to me as like at least kind of plausibly reasonable things to build. My team might not feel the same way. But yeah, for me, that's very, like Ed, I like playing Mordekaiser for a similar reason of like, okay, well, I have more items that I get to think about this game and how I want to counter the enemy team and how I want to build to support my own team. So I like hybrid champions. I like champions that can build AP, AD, more offensive, more defensive. And so when I like that every game I'm playing Shyvana, I actually think about what new combination of items I might build that game.
Yeah, do you have a personal favorite build right now?
Not one that I'm brave enough to say on stage.
Sounds like he might be an AP Shyvana abuser. Maybe.
I may have been in the hotel room last night building embarrassing items.
It's okay. Your op.gg is safe with me. Awesome. So I guess we talked about a lot of like the big wins with that we've found in developing Shyvana and kind of how we were able to remain true to a lot of aspects to her. As you were going through the process, what were kind of the most challenging things that you guys encountered working through it?
Mine's a little bit of a cop-out. Maybe I'll say two things. One, I think we touched on a little bit, but it's always trying to find that balance between how much you want to change for a champion versus how much you want to preserve to keep that essence for her. And so as we started, I think, on Shyvana about like a year ago, we really did feel like the core essence of her was so resonant that we wanted to keep a lot of those pieces. But it's always kind of a tricky balance there because I think you run the risk of alienating or not serving an audience that already likes her versus an audience who might like her. And so that's always something that's top of mind for her. The other part is I think the team was just really aware of how much the community wanted this update. And so we just came in with a lot of like high expectations and understanding that there was a very hungry group of players we were hoping to serve. So I think those two were trickiest for our team.
So how do you typically balance trying, like when you're going to update a champion, making them something more accessible for players that maybe haven't been interested in Shyvana so far versus those that have been playing Shyvana since like the day she came out?
I think for Shyvana, we thought that the core was already there. And so it was more about how do we improve her to fit in modern League. Some good examples of the past where we thought there were potentially like mechanics that were a little too niche that really limited the champion. I think Aurelion Sol is actually a really good example. We know that there were a group of players who really loved, the circling stars around him mechanic, but we knew that there was a lot of players who were like, ooh, this is a little finicky, a little weird. It's very different from anything else you find in League. And that's something I think we're more and more concerned about, or at least conscious of. We do have 170 champions. The burden to learn each new one can be a little tough. So if you have someone who's just very, very, very vastly different, that can make it really tough. And so those are kind of some of the considerations we're thinking through now.
I will say, as much as I do miss the rotating stars, the ASOL throwing up stars at your opponent is a really great touch. Thank you. ASOL mains? Any ASOL mains? Let's go. Not good for my solo queue, but good for my heart. So what about you, River? What were some of the most challenging things when it came to updating Shyvana's lore?
Yeah, I mean, I think echoing some of what Ed said, I know I feel like we're echoing each other a lot, but I think that speaks to sort of how collaborative and aligned we kind of had to be through the whole process, right? Like, for Shyvana, it was when we're looking at expanding or like sort of taking a core of a character that's already really beloved and then giving them more content, giving them more things to say, ways to interact with the world narratively. Really wanting to deliver on, there's as many different versions of this character in people's heads as there are players who play her, right? And they're all gonna be like slightly different. And so trying to find what feels like the best version that delivers on the sort of fantasy and the love that players and fans have for her is always, I think, a really big burden across the board, but a very worthwhile one. I think that we would all agree in that. And so I think that was part of it, was like, okay, is everything I'm writing here gonna feel good for people who know and love this character, who know and love every version of her that's come before? And then I think also like really dialing down on, because I mentioned like her relationship to Demacia and her relationship to why she fights and what she does is a lot different than I think other characters sort of in her same arena. What drives her, I think, was the thing that we really were like going back and forth on and trying to find the exact expression of, what balance of like feral badass dragon to like, no, she is like a person who's got like really strong convictions and ideals that she's pursuing, and so much of her story is about that titration between the dragon in her and the human in her, and so because of that, it was really fun, but also it was a very big challenge to find what's the exact right balance of how many lines are going to be more focused on sort of her dragon-y nature, We talked a lot about her being like, she knows that when she walks into any given room full of humans, she is kind of an apex predator. She is like, she's a dragon, She exists in a fundamentally different kind of scale, no pun intended, but also intended.
Nice.
Then, thank you. Then everyone else around her, and that changes her relationship to other people, changes her relationship to the world. And so finding the ways in which that can both feel really resonant to players and people can kind of connect and try and step into those shoes, but also like, doesn't feel too like a different mindset. It still feels like her, I think was one of the bigger challenges we encountered, especially for VO expression.
Yeah, with gameplay, it was a lot of balancing the tension and juxtaposition of the different elements of her as a character. So she's a Juggernaut diver, and then already that's pretty tough. Like a Juggernaut is supposed to be, it's supposed to walk you down, and if they can catch you, you're in a lot of trouble. But maybe they can't. But then a diver, by their nature has to be able to dive, right? So there's just a lot of tension there of like, what's the right amount to let people do that, where they can still have that fantasy moment, but you haven't combined these two classes in a way that just breaks the game for everyone. And then also her being able to build AD or AP items and build more offensive or more bruiser or even straight up tank items in some cases. Like, it's just a lot to balance all those things and try to walk that line of letting you play out the fantasies that we're going for with her without breaking the game for everyone else you're playing with.
I wouldn't mind that as long as she's on my team. Okay, so kind of on the flip side of that then, what are you all most proud of in terms of how she landed?
I think for me, it's definitely where that dragon form landed, and then I think we were able to add just like a lot of personality and touches to it. So when I think of just like she has a custom run animation when she uses her W in dragon form, when she gains some movement speed, and she's almost kind of like, she has like a very unique run. It almost looks like she's kind of happy when she's doing it. So I thought we were able to add just kind of these like light little touches that gave her great personality. Some of the ways that she attacks in dragon form I thought just turned out so well. She'll like slam her tail, or she'll use her wings. She has this big bite. And so I think a lot of the art really came together. Our animators in particular just did such an amazing, fantastic job there. And so I think that part really resonates with me.
Yeah, I think I'm really proud of the like I said, the nuance we got to sort of express in her now, which is really cool. We got to, hear more about her comments on the world and the way she thinks about things, and also getting to give her a sense of humor, I think, was really fun. She's very dry. She's very like she's got some jokes. She's good, and I think she's a line about small talk and how much she hates it, which is so funny. And like those moments that make her feel, like I said, like a person who has a point of view and has a sense of humor, and I think is dealing with this very unique situation that she's always been in, and is really fun. And I think I'm really proud of how that turned out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the dragon form is just incredible now. And other than that, like the Q, I feel like feels a lot better, a lot like meteor hits. And the passive scaling over the course of the game, like the shape of how that works, I find a lot more satisfying than just like all or nothing, whether you were getting dragons or not.
Yeah, I do want to echo, like, I remember back, like, season 2, 3, when I was picking up League, and then, like, I see this, like, Dragon Lady champion, and I'm like, wait, this is sick, I have to play this. And I ult for the first time, and I'm like, wait, this isn't a dragon. So I do greatly appreciate, like, as you mentioned earlier, like, her Western dragon design. I think it's really cool, insane, like, Juggernaut battles when it's Dragon v Dragon in the pit. So yeah, her new visuals for me are probably like, I think where like everyone absolutely killed it, in addition to just like all the aspects of her.
I'm also glad that she looks like she could kick your ass now. Like she is beefy, she's big, she's intimidating, she's physically powerful, and I'm glad that I feel like that's more represented now too.
Oh yeah.
That wasn't my craft, I just love that that's a thing now.
Yeah, she is great. I mean, look at that splash, look at how imposing that is, that's insane.
Shout out to our splash artists who are amazing.
Yeah, the team absolutely killed it on that one. So as we're wrapping up here, is there anything that all of you want to say to the Shyvana players and League players in the audience or at home?
Yeah, we really appreciate your support. So if you haven't played Shyvana yet, please give her a try. If you have, we'd love to hear your feedback. We're definitely listening now. We have some plans in the upcoming patches we're working on. And so ultimately, we just really appreciate that you're trying her, you're giving us feedback, and just want to say thank you to the community.
I mean, I feel like echoing that entirely. I hope that you guys love her as much as we do, and I hope that you see all the love and care that was put into her, and you know, we obviously provide you, you know, like here's the thing that's in the game, but ultimately it's the fans and the people playing the characters that ultimately sort of make them sing, and so I hope that, you know, you give our dragon wings, you know, so thank you. Yeah.
River with all the puns today. Good stuff. Good stuff.
I'm always on it.
I don't have any puns.
Workshop it.
But no, what Ed and River said, I mean, thank you all for playing. Thank you all for your feedback. We listen and hear all of it and are continually trying to make Shyvana and all the champions and the game better. So yeah, keep an eye out for us listening and doing our best to keep improving things.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to all of you today for coming out to the panel. We will be doing another panel on Sunday talking about kind of the process of how we make a champion for League of Legends that you can apply more towards like general video games that are not League. So if that's something that you're interested in, please do come check it out. We'd love to have you. But thank all of you for taking the time to come out and listen to us today. We hope that even if Shyvana isn't your favorite champion, that you are at least enjoying League. Thank you all for being a part of the community. We love to have you and looking forward to continuing to play with you. And if we get matched, I'm sorry. But I will pass it off to 2XKO, who has a cool community program they're going to give you guys a little bit of information about today. So thank you again, Noel.
Thank you.
Hello, hello, PAX East. Very excited to be here. Hello, everybody. Okay. Oh, let's get into it. All right. So I'm here to talk about community event support. But first off, I am Jules, aka JulezJP. I am the community lead for 2XKO. I am so excited to be here. Quick shout out to the Boston FGC. We've met a bunch of people. Shout out to NXKO. We're going to be at Balance Patch later today. So if you're into fighting games, come hang with us. So if you don't know what 2XKO is a next generation 2v2 tag fighter. Shout outs to Maddie on our brand team for hooking me up with the slide. You can team up with your friends or go solo as you battle it out with a growing roster of League of Legends champions, each reimagined for explosive fighting game combat. One of the best things is when you grab a friend and you run duos, you can both play on the same team together. So let's talk about the community program. So we are launching the 2XKO community events program today. You can now earn in-game rewards for playing in an eligible 2XKO community event on start.gg. So this is super easy to apply. So most fighting game tournaments are already held on start.gg anyway. We have a dedicated league page where if you are a tournament organizer, you can go to this league page and you can apply. There's some really simple eligibility, but go ahead and head to that league page, read all about it, and then if you're eligible, please apply, and we will accept you as soon as we can. So what can you earn from this program? So we have some really cool in-game items. This is the casual suit avatar item that you can be totally blinged out if you ever want to, cosplay as like a Turk or something. And then you will also get 3,000 credits. It's capped at 3,000 for the week. So as long as you go to one event, you'll get this. And then if you win, you will get a title in-game. And then of course, what this is all about is friendship. We're here to make friends and to build community, and hopefully this encourages more people to come out to your local, participate in fighting games. It is okay if you lose or go 0-2 if you make friends along the way. Yeah, that is it. It is a super quick announcement. Myself and then Paul and Steve from our team, they're over there. We're going to be around PAX East all weekend. If you have any questions about 2XKO, please come talk to us. We love chatting with you guys. And that is going to wrap it up for 2XKO. I am going to now hand it off to the Riftbound and the TFT team. So please, welcome in.
Yes, give it up again for Julia and the 2X team. Woo! Okay, enough. It's time for strategy games. Hi again, I'm Katie. We met earlier. I'm the global community strategist for TFT, which, if you didn't know, is the largest PC strategy game in the world. TFT is a free-to-play PvP auto-battler where you and 7 other players get to draft from the same pool, position them on your board, and then battle to be the last one standing. So I bet some of you already know that, so raise your hand if you've played TFT before. Very good, excellent.
Hey Riftbounders, so I'm Diana, I'm the Global Community and Influencer Manager for Riftbound. If you don't know what Riftbound is, it's the League of Legends trading card game where players are going to use units, legends, and abilities from across Runeterra to conquer battlefields, earn points, and hopefully win the game. So raise your hand if you play Riftbound.
And keep your hand raised if you play both.
Or raise both your hands.
That works too.
Okay, great.
Yeah, because both games are actually very, very similar.
Right.
And we both use beloved League IP to achieve a best-in-genre experience for our players. And today we're joined by devs from both teams here. So let's go down the line, introduce yourself, say what you do for the team, and then tell everyone who you think gives the best high five in Runeterra.
Hello, my name is Mindy Chi. I am a technical game designer on Riftbound, and previously I worked on TFT for 4 years as well. And I think Kobako gives the best high fives because no explanation necessary. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Naomi Kute. I am the set design lead for set 17. And I think that Rakan would give the best high fives because he's just really overwhelmingly positive, and so it's hard to believe he would ever give a bad high five.
I like that.
Hi.
Yeah, like, would she be okay with you just
I think they have a
doing all
healthy
that?
enough relationship that, like, he's not going anywhere. She does not have to worry about him.
That's fair.
He's locked in.
Hi, I'm John Mormon. I'm sets design lead for Riftbound, and I was the set lead for Origins and the upcoming set Radiance. And my pick is going to be Ivern.
With your Ivern shirt.
Wouldn't that hurt?
No, he'd be extremely gentle.
Yeah, he's gentle.
So tree.
I'm Alex. I'm the head of gameplay for TFT. Best high five? I have to go with Blitz. You just stand there. He does all the work.
I feel like that one would hurt.
Yes. Yeah. What about you, Katie?
I think Braum. I just feel like he's such a warm and positive character. Like,
And you get Poros.
yeah, exactly.
Poros.
How about you?
Well, so admittedly, my answer is a little weird. I have very limited exposure to Riot games. In fact, Riftbound is my first Riot game, so very few champions that I'm super familiar with. But I don't know. I feel like Darius might give a decent high.
Oh my
wow.
God, what a terrible
Bad
answer.
Okay, well, calm down.
There are, in fact, wrong answers, I guess.
I should just leave. I'll go. I mean, I'm really excited to hear from some of you devs, though, because with my limited knowledge, it's really cool to kind of get this peek behind the curtain and learn a little bit more about not only my team, but also the TFT team, because we're strategy games, so we're kind of like cousins.
Sisters,
best friends.
twins.
Yeah, something like that. So I'm going to start with you, John. And of course, I'm going to put you on the spot immediately.
Sounds good.
Can you explain to me sort of the top to bottom set design process for Riftbound in 42 seconds?
All right, so we start with a theme. Sometimes it's a mechanical theme, like in Spirit Forged. We started with the idea of like equipment and moving equipment around the battlefield. Sometimes it's more of a general theme, like the jungle for our upcoming set Unleashed. From there, we go to build out a champion roster for that. We build out champions that fit with the mechanic or with the theme. We then build out decks for each of those champions and then kind of fill in the cards around that with exciting things that we hope people want to open and play with.
Noemi, how about you for TFT? And maybe we'll do just like a little bit more time because I feel like it. How about 45 seconds?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we actually approach things in a really similar way. For TFT now, we usually start with a really broad theme, and then we try to find the skins and the champions that we feel best represent that theme. And then, similar to y'all, it's a lot of just like iteration to whittle down like what's working, what's not working, our favorite pieces, things we call like our core pieces that really represent the set. And then it's a lot of playtesting. It's just a lot of playtesting, taking the pieces that don't work out, trying to fit something in that does work. And if that doesn't work, that's where things get tricky. And we have a lot more work to do because then we have to rip out more pieces and fill them in with even more because everything's a ripple effect because everything's very connected.
That's a really good point. I feel like even for our sets, we have probably 8 or 10 times as many cards in the file at some point. Like almost everything gets put in, torn out, put back in again. It's very rare you get a card that makes it the whole way through the process.
Yes, it's the same for us. And sometimes you rip things out and then you're like, oh, you know what would fit here? A couple months later, that same thing we took out, let's put it back in.
Or a couple sets later, you never know.
Yeah, you know.
I'm actually slightly jealous of Riftbound in some ways because TFT, we're very reliant on League skins and existing League skins, and we've built a ton of new stuff in the most recent sets, but you guys can just kind of create a card, and if you want a specific theme, you can just snap your fingers and make it. That's pretty sick.
It's a little more complicated than that, but not much.
I don't think so.
And Mindy, as someone who's worked both on TFT and Riftbound, what would you say something that is like really similar when designing for both games?
Yeah, they both have a lot of similarities. They are both like, I would say like almost live service games in a way because they both have their core gameplay that doesn't change from set to set. That's like really fun and people enjoy. But the big thing is the set-based content structures. So like every few months we'll come out with new and exciting stuff for players, and that kind of lends itself to having very similar design styles for both, where you want to have like a lot of novelty every set. Let's give something new to players while also keeping some of the stuff that they know and love. We'll do that from set to set. Like, you know, Riftbound has some mechanics that you'll see again and again across them. And TFT, we might like keep some things similar or like mechanics that we've seen before that are like popular from past sets too. And another thing about both games is that they are, like, you touched on that already, but they're very interconnected. Like, you can't just be like, oh, this would be the coolest champion for this TFT set right here, and I'm never going to change it because both games have to think about the whole ecosystem of this set. Like, what is going to serve the set as a whole, the thematic, make sure all the pieces work well together because every piece of content interacts with every piece of content. Similarly for a card, you can't just be like, oh, this card is sick, I'm just going to put it here. You got to think about all the cards that are going to come in previous sets and in future sets too, and think about if it's going to work there, and think about the big picture as the most healthy thing and most important thing rather than a piece of individual content. And I think one big difference though is like for TFT, it's like very self-contained, like you kind of design within the set and then next set it's all gone. But for Riftbound, it's you know, previous and future sets, so that's another thing you have to consider. I haven't worked on multiple Riftbound sets yet, but John has, so I don't know if you want to speak a little on what that kind of looks like and what you had to think about for designing for multi-sets.
Yeah, it's been a really fun part because we can't have everybody working on every set at the same time. We kind of have to, because of the way timelines work, break into smaller teams. But then we take opportunities to have everybody play test each other's sets, and that's some of the most exciting points in the set development process. Because maybe you're working on the next set and you finally get a chance to play test the near finished version of the prior set, and you're like, okay, I have some ideas here I can build off of that they didn't get to quite experiment with yet. I'm going to just pull those into my set, and then it's awesome design space that you didn't know you had before.
How many Riftbound sets are being worked on at a time, would you say?
I mean, in what level of development?
in any level. This is your playground. You tell me.
I think if we're saying any level from literally the point where we are considering what we're doing to getting the cards in players' hands, I think we have 6 in development right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And Alex, how many TFT sets do you think we're developing?
We have the 2 for this year in production currently, so and then we have early conversations around what our themes are going to be for next year. So if you see me around and you have any cool ideas, hit me up with a theme you would love to see.
Food Fight Tactics?
Food Fight Tactics is a beloved one that I hear very often, and they keep making food skins, so.
You just keep pushing it, Katie. You keep pushing it.
My dumpling surfing skin will come to TFT one day.
I mean, I love hearing about sort of the iteration process, and I mean, it's really cool to hear about what goes right. But what about what happens when something goes wrong in your game? So how do you address problems as they arise, not only during that playtesting, but also once a thing has launched? Noemi?
Yeah, I think TFT is in a really fortunate position for things like this because, well, one, if things are wrong, it will just all change in 4 months. So things can't really be that wrong. But also, if we do really have an individual or a couple pieces of content that aren't working, we have the ability to just change them or remove them. But as I understand it, for Riftbound being a physical card game, that's you can't go into people's houses and just take their cards, right?
Yeah, we experimented with sending Dave Guskin with a Sharpie to every LGS, but it didn't work. So yeah, we kind of have to try and get things right before we send it out to players and get it into their hands. And a lot of that comes in the internal testing. We are moving cards around constantly, as we mentioned, and sometimes that involves even moving something late in the process. And like Mindy said, everything is very interconnected, so sometimes you'll have to rebalance one card that then leads to you having to rebalance 6 other cards because it changes the way an archetype works. And then once it gets out into players' hands, we have basically a limited number of options available to us. We have the opportunity to ban cards. This is not something we want to do lightly. Like, every card is somebody's favorite card, and not everybody gets to read the ban announcements. And nothing stinks worse than going to your Nexus Nights and then having your opponent be like, I'm sorry, you can't use that. Your deck's illegal. We've considered other options in terms of like restricting cards where you can only use a limited number of copies. We feel like that kind of puts you in a situation where like the problem's not solved, it just comes up less. So it's not really satisfying as a solution. And then we've also aligned as a team that we don't want to use errata for balance reasons. Errata, for folks who are not as much into TCGs, is where we make an official change to the wording of a card, but it's still written as it is on the card, obviously. We'll do that for clarification purposes. Sometimes things just like work better in the rules if you have very specific language, but it still reads okay. But we try not to do it for balance reasons, kind of for similar ideas. I want your card to do mostly what it says it does.
And Alex, this is something that you have a lot of experience with on TFT. How do you fix problems?
Yeah, I work with the live team a bunch, and I think one thing that we talk about a ton is honestly just how grateful we are for the players. I think on 2 ends. One, the patience you guys have as we're working through things is amazing, but I think we've made that pact with you all in a way of like, if something's off, we react to it extremely quickly, and that's something we take really seriously. But TFT is such, like they've talked about, such an interconnected game. We can't just take away the 4-cost tank that isn't working. We have to rework that and figure out what it is. So the live team deals with a lot of things internally around like localization. So like our timelines are actually incredibly short each patch. So folks like Tim really put in the work, but yeah, definitely something we're always striving to get better for.
Yeah, I also want to mention too that having worked on both games, one thing I really appreciate about our design culture and like the way we think about things is we're both very data driven and both very player driven. So we rely on like what we see out in the wild, the data that we have, but we also are players ourselves of like a lot of our games. So we have to like kind of balance both sides and are not just like purely data driven, but we are very informed with the data too for changes we make for both games and the impacts it has and that like the nature of like a card game and it being physical versus, you know, in the digital game we can like fix bugs quite like quickly and within the next patch usually, and consider like if we need to hot fix it like and do it an even more urgent kind of fix too. So
keep telling us things.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have a very nice life balance team because whenever I have a bad TFT game, I will go to our devs desk and I'm like, fix this. Why?
Yeah, trust me, guys. If you all are annoyed by something, I've already messaged him on Discord how annoyed I am by it. So very heard, and yeah, luckily our teams are really, really engaged in playing the game, and I think that helps a lot.
That is a really interesting thing for our internal testing as well. Like when we're testing out the live meta to try and like make comparisons for ourselves, or even when we're testing future sets, we also have to occasionally make adaptations for like who is playing what deck, because everybody on the team is a different player. We are better at different things. Like different archetypes are better for certain people, and there are some people on our team who are just astronomically better card game players than anybody else in the company. And like, what are you gonna do? That person's gonna win most of the time. So you kind of have to be able to look past like single game results at time and actually look for the way the pattern is playing to figure out what needs to be done.
I kept trying to give the feedback of I continue to lose my games, but they didn't make the game any easier. So, yeah, now you get to hear it again in front of an audience.
So when I think about TFT as a very engaged TFT player, I'm always trying to figure out like the synergies between the traits and the origin. For example, for Sex 16, Lore and Legends, you usually want to play Demacia characters together because they make each other stronger. So when it comes to things like Riftbound, how does synergy work?
So generally, when we look for synergy within our game, we try to build an archetype out for a champion. So we want your deck to be centered around this idea of your legend and the champion that you're playing with, and give you kind of a good goalpost for what you want to do with it. I think I see Lily on the board here. She's a great example of a deck that wants to be playing around with these temporary sprite tokens, and all of her cards kind of build in that synergy to work with those temporary sprite tokens. But then those cards also need to work in other people's decks. We can't just make something that really only goes in this one, or like, we can do it with signature spells and legends, but it's pretty limited. So then we try to find decks that pair well with that. So we have LeBlanc in the same set, who also makes a different kind of temporary token, giving us a lot of like cross-pollination between those two archetypes.
Yeah, and in design, we have like kind of an idea of explicit versus implicit synergies. So explicit is like in TFT, like this unit is Demacia and Warden, so obviously we put those together. And then there's implicit synergies like, oh, this unit shreds and reduces armor, and this guy does physical damage, therefore I put them together. So both games kind of have an expression of both of those things too. Like we have the Legend Champion Signature Spell package and Archetype Mechanic package and Riftbound, but sometimes you're like, oh, like this guy like does XYZ buff that goes really well with this, and just like same thing for TFT too. TFT is much more explicit synergy based of like the traits and everything, but there's all different types of players that just want to put in the explicit traits, but some that want to like think maybe about like, oh, like can I cook and put something like super crazy together with these kind of champions or mechanics too. So a little mix of both in both games.
Yeah, I think having the mix also is really exciting for me, even as like a dev, because I know that no matter how much we have like played stuff internally, we are going to give it to players and they will find like the most cursed thing ever and find a way to play it. And
Same.
like,
Which we love. We love.
yeah, we love it. It's like it genuinely is very exciting.
Frontline Spirit Bomb Ari.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just I didn't even think about that, but of course somebody would have, right? And it's just once we release it, we get thousands of games in a day, and for us we get like 3 if we're lucky in a day, and so it's really, really cool to see.
When you all start to design those things, when you look at kind of putting together a set and building out those initial units, I mean, is the process something like you have this league character that you want to bring over and kind of create that character for your game? Or is it more you looking at sort of the spread of everything else that's going on in TFT or in Riftbound and saying, we want to bring in these abilities, this champion happens to embody some of that and we think we can make it work. So what is sort of the order of operations there, Alex?
Do you want to take this one, Nomi?
Sorry, what did you?
In terms of, do you want to take this one?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, the echo. Yeah, so I mean, I think it really depends on the where we're at in production. So in the beginning, everything's like very free-flowing. It's very, we use the term dreamy, which is just like, whatever you want, throw it in. We'll see if we can make it work. And that's usually where we get the like, well, I really want this champion, or I really think that this champion represents the skin line really well, or this theme really well. Let's bring them in. But then when we get to that like iteration phase that I was talking about, where we're really testing stuff, pulling things out, putting things back in, it gets a little trickier to do that. And so that is when we actually approach more with the, well, we have this, I almost talk about them like puzzle pieces. I'm like, I have this shape here, and I need something that fills this shape.
Beautiful mind, the whole thing all together.
Yes. Like, I need this puzzle piece, and so then I go and I look at champions, and I look at what is kind of associated with them, and what abilities they have, and what like visual shapes I'm looking for as well. And then we kind of pull from that list. And sometimes we don't have a great list. And that's where we get to these like really more interpretive versions of our champions, where these are really exciting for me, where it's like, oh, well, here's this champion, and they're doing this thing that does feel like something they do, but people have never seen that from them before. And so we can really hand it to the artists and be like, just go ham, make it look cool.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things that we're able to do on TFT in particular, is take a champion that players really love and show them in a new light that they've never seen before One of my favorite examples is for folks that played Set 8, we had a Leona that had this orbital laser. And when you think of Leona, you don't really think of the orbital laser, but like, yeah, she's like harnessing the power of the sun, and you can kind of get there and see her fantasy. And I really love that we're able to do that, but we never want to stretch too far. We kind of want to hold true to like who that champion is, because like if you love Diana or you love Vi, you still want that fantasy of like, I'm playing this champion I love, but we do love being able to serve that in new ways in TFT.
Yeah, I think we have a very similar process in Riftbound, where obviously we start with generally something that is thematically linked to what we're doing. So if we're in Unleashed, we might start with some jungle champions like Kha'Zix and Rengar. And then our champions are broken apart into 6 domains, and each champion has 2 domains. So as we're filling out our roster, we're kind of filling in those slots for each of the domain pairs based on what things are. And we'll eventually get to a point where we have a couple slots left and we have some very specific domain pairs we need to fill, at which point we go to this giant spreadsheet we have where we have looked at every champion and said what domains we think they can fit in, and go, who can I fit in here that like still fits with the theme a little bit or gives me something that I can like basically sell very well on the box and like make the set exciting for players. And then to the idea of like kind of reinterpreting champions, we operate in a very similar space where like sometimes you manage to get something that feels mechanically like what a champion does in League of Legends. I think Vex in Unleashed is a great example of this, where she's all about movement denial and kind of like being mean to your opponents, and that deck plays as just stun after stun after stun. It's very frustrating to play against, but in like the best way. And then we also have other champions, like I'm gonna talk about Ivern a lot, I'm sorry y'all, I love Ivern. But he doesn't necessarily play with the same kit that you get in League, but we looked more towards what the character of Ivern is. He's this friend of the forest who loves little animals. And so we're like, what if we made his deck all about gathering together the birds and dogs and cats and poros of the world, and then taking your cute army into battle against all the Demacians and winning anyways?
I mean, at the very least, you feel terrible winning against that deck.
You should, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, we're working with such specific characters with like established lore and skills. Like, what would you say is the furthest you're comfortable with stretching that, like imagination and lore?
TFT's pretty comfortable with it. I think especially as time goes on, I mean, we want to hold true to who the champion is, but we also want to like surprise and delight players. So we've definitely gone pretty creative a few times. And I think it's been nice too to bring in stuff like Kobuko, because we can create new fantasies and kind of, you know, share that even more. But I would say on TFT, especially in the 5-cost space, we play around quite a bit with how big we can stretch things.
Yeah, I think it all kind of comes down to like, can we make someone really happy and delight them with it? And a lot of times the answer is coming from the League of Legends IP, people love these champions, love these characters so much, and they want to be able to see the cool thing that their champion does. But sometimes they're like, hey, Lissandra puts people into a giant teapot and it cooks them up, and it's like sick. So, and that's going to make someone really, really happy to see. Like as designers, it's just like, what can we do to make them really happy? Is that going to... Like,
these are all Noemi spells, by the way. When she says she's a thematic designer, she's a very thematic designer.
I mean, I do really, really love these designs because I think, just to give more context here, the way that I think that we usually approach these is like Lissandra in that skin it's a porcelain skin. And so when I was approaching that champion, I was like, well, it's porcelain, teapot, tea. What if you just in the teapot, you know? And it sounds really silly, but then we make it and it's really fun. And I'm like, you know, that when I talk about our core pieces for a set, that becomes one of our core pieces. We're like, yeah, Lissandra puts people in a teapot because it's whimsical, it's fun, and we want our game to be fun. It doesn't have to be all serious all the time, but I really think that the way that we approach these is around like using the really core identity of these alternate universes and the skin lines that the skins team creates. And they have this whole, you know, they have all this information on how they created them, why they created them, the core pillars of those skin lines. And so it makes it really easy for us to find things to pull from when we're like, I need Lissandra to be like, you know, to do this thing, but her spells don't do this thing, but the teapot does.
Was that one of those dreamy ideas that made it all the way through development? Oh,
yes, that was one that like,
One
on paper, I was like, she's gonna put people in a teapot, and they were like, yep, that sounds good.
One of my favorite memories, we were working on set 8, which was like a kaiju themed set. And I remember we get, like she was saying, we get a lot of our inspiration from the League skins. And part of that is actually watching videos of like their recall animations and other things that they're doing on SR. But I remember walking by I think it was you and Linda who was our set lead. And Linda just turns around and she's like, what if Mordekaiser drops a building on someone? And I was like, sure, that sounds cool. So yeah, having those moments in the office is really, really fun.
Noemi mentioned something else that I think is like one of my favorite parts about working at Riot, honestly, on all this, is that everything we're touching has such a background and such a passion from other people in the company. So when you want to look at what you want to do for a particular character, there's somebody you can ask who will just info dump on you, like everything that they considered, a ton of different background information, a lot of angles for you to use. It's wonderful as a designer to just be able to have that much raw material to work with.
Yeah, like a little behind the scenes on like developing for TFT. A fun part is when you're making like a 5-cost champion, you sit there and you look through all their spells and all their VFX and you're like, what crazy stuff is there? Because then you're like, giant building, teapot, like, I don't know, like random emojis that pop up. I don't know, just like random things you'll find in digging through VFX, and then that kind of like can inspire a lot of like really crazy fun things sometimes that like other artists have made for League, but they get to bring to life in TFT, which is really cool. So.
I mean, Mindy, I've heard you mention it. Noemi, I heard you mention it. I'm sure, John, Alex, you both mentioned it at some point while you were sitting up here. But you mentioned that you kind of start off approaching something through thematics, a theme, a baseline for a set. So what does that look like for Riftbound versus TFT? How does it differ?
Yeah, I can go first. The process has changed a lot over time. Currently, we've gotten a lot better. We're able to plan out much further ahead. Like I said, we're working on all the themes for next year, but it's now driven mostly by product. Tori, our art lead, does a lot of the heavy lifting, and we kind of think about it in a few ways. We think about what's going on at Riot. Are there any big moments we want to tie into, like with set 10 and the music stuff, which is really fun, or Arcane. And then there's also just, we don't want to serve 3 sci-fi sets in a row. We don't want to do 3 fantasy sets in a row. So we kind of think of what the player journey is going to be like over the course of the year. So there's a lot of different factors we think about.
Yeah, I think for Riftbound, it's kind of in a unique place in its life cycle as being a fairly new game. So like when we were looking at what is the theme for Origins, the theme was let's make a card game. And so we wanted to make sure we got in things that really like sold you on this is League of Legends, but also things that are like, if I play other card games, what are the things I'm going to be excited for? I think I've talked about Victor a bunch from Origins, but he is a token generator, and we knew people like playing these go-wide token decks. So even before we knew that was Victor, he was in the card file, and I think we ran him through multiple different champions. He was Soraka making like Stellacorn ponies at one point, and Braum making Poros. And when we found Victor and the Arcane stuff, we're like, oh, this is something that'll really excite people and give us the archetype we want to see. Going forward into future sets, I think our themes are getting a little tighter. They're getting a little more like closer to what TFT is doing, and we'll see more of that as we go forward.
I will say one of my favorite things that we do on TFT is every once in a while we'll put out pitches, or like people can submit pitches for themes, and we have gotten some of the craziest themes.
What's been your favorite? Because now you have to share. What's been your favorite?
One that we will definitely not ship just because we don't have the skin lines for it, but one got pitched by Julian, who led set 16. I think it was like almost like a Hollywood theme, like backstage at the movies type of vibe.
I've heard his pitch on this one.
It was very fun to read through.
I'm hearing a lot about food fight tactics. I don't know.
I hear good things. Seems really popular.
It comes up a lot in my day-to-day life, so who knows.
So thinking about all these different characters, let's give our devs some homework. So if you were to take your favorite character in Runeterra, how do you want to see it for the other game? Mindy, maybe let's start with you. I mean, you've worked on both,
Yeah,
so you can pick whichever one.
Oh, I'll just pick a funny one, I guess. I really love Lulu, and I think that Lulu can beat any AD carry in lane in a 1v1 like pre-level 3, and I think that should just be reflected, that sometimes she should just deal a lot of damage and destroy someone in one of the games. I don't know, maybe that could happen one day. Taxi Lulu, just like, I don't know, just someone destroy someone, yeah.
I feel like all set have been asking for Lulu to be a carry in Lore and Legends, and then every patch in our meeting, Alex is like, no.
She's the one support unit in the set.
She does awful damage.
That's
I want
the
a
point.
good level, like, I want a good stage 2, stage 3 AP carry. I don't have a Sona or a Nivea, and I only have Lulu, and she's doing
100
nothing.
champions and we can't make you happy. It's
No.
kind of
She
crazy.
used to be a top laner.
I'm the classic TFT player. I cannot be satisfied.
Katie, thank you so much for the feedback. We'll take it.
Like,
No,
well,
I mean-
we'll consider that. That's great.
Noemi, what would you build for Riftbound?
So I am a big Xayah Rakan fan, so I know it's 2 and not 1 champion. Yeah, I don't know who said that. Yeah, you. I really, really like Xayah Rakan. I'm a big fan of birds, and also they're just like really cute. They're like couple goals, you know. So I would actually really like something in Riftbound where their whole mechanic around, if you play them together, they function just better. They're just better together. I would want like, there's like a lot of cards that move around a lot, and Rakan's kind of that like charmer, and he's like moving around a bunch, and Xayah's the one kind of dealing damage from the back. But I would really like if, like Xayah's out there and Rakan can just like zoom his way all the way to the combat field from like, I don't know, you're ready.
Yeah, your base. Yeah, I
or
like
just
it.
your deck, kind of just,
Ooh,
like
okay.
surprise, he's here too, But something with that movement, I think I would really, really like that. Okay.
Sounds sweet. All right, we got another one. So I'm a big fan of the Broloff skin. I would like to expand Broloff out into the TFT University set, where we can have Broloff and maybe his friends Brogath and Gallibro all running a fraternity.
Another school, magical school AU?
Yeah.
I'm in.
I have
college.
such limited knowledge of Riot games, but even I can tell you this is too much.
This is a great example of the pitches that I get from my designers.
I'm helping.
But no, we're literally just backstage saying how much we love like the day job skins and how fun those would be to get into a set. But in terms of a champion, I've given this pitch so many times. Ari's my favorite champion, but we don't really do much with her fox form. And I think having a card in Riftbound that is a fox or the tokens are foxes could be very cool.
Yeah, one of the things I'm really excited for is as we get more sets, what we've done so far is we've released a champion, like a side champion, and then released the legend for it in later sets and kind of let them build off. Vi is up here, and she works great with the Origins Vi. We haven't had a chance yet to go the opposite direction, where we actually get to release a new side champion for a deck that already exists. I think that's a very exciting space, and who knows, maybe Fox Form Ari is where it's at.
Perfect.
That kind of brings up a good point with you talking about Ari's Fox form. So what's your favorite way that your game pays homage to Runeterra lore?
Oh, that's a good question. It's definitely tough in TFT. We're never going to really be a narrative game. So the way that we approach it normally is kind of like nods or winks or ways to make the player feel smart or in the know. We actually did a lot more of it with 16, where we kind of played around with the unlocks. Like Ash and Tryndamere had a good unlock together. Nidalee and Nico had an unlock that were connected. So we try to get in the Easter eggs and stuff, but at the end of the day, being a strategy game, it's hard for us to really tell a story. Even within our thematics, it's hard to tell like the full story. But we do have these amazing marquees that the publishing team makes that do tell good bits of the story. But yeah, we mostly just trying to weave them in. Set 9, we did a bunch too with region portals, where we kind of did different regions in Runeterra that maybe normally wouldn't get called out. So that's kind of normally how we approach it in TFT. What do you guys do in Riftbound?
So we have a little bit more space between things like art and our custom units that are not champions, that are just kind of like color of around the world of Runeterra, and then also flavor text, obviously. But even within that, we can't really guarantee any particular story is told. It's much more like vignettes within the world, because I can't promise that card A is going to be played before card B, before card C, and then you actually get to see something happen. It's more like, here's a fish. What's that fish up to? So I think we are going to keep exploring more ways to establish more lore as we go forward and get later Riftbound sets. But it's probably still going to remain this kind of a series of viewpoints into a world and what's happening there.
I will say one of my favorite things is seeing posts on Discord or Reddit of the players bringing the stories they want to life with our characters. Like that came up a bunch in the Arcane set. And players would just play certain boards just to make the family all together, or to have like the full family with Echo. So yeah, I love seeing that kind of stuff come through.
Yeah, that's definitely something we try and design towards when we can, is like, I want to give you a reason to put Jinx in, or Vi in your Jinx deck and that sort of thing.
I will also say, one of the things that y'all have is, I think the card art tells a lot of the story already.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm like a big fan of, I'm like one of the people who like puts the cards together and I'm like, yeah, and this guy went here, and now he's here, and now he's over here. And then figuring out the story that way, even if it's not like the Runeterra champion stories, there's still like the story of the background guy, and those are actually really fun for me.
I feel like I learn a lot about the lore from.
Can't forget Cythria.
We love Cythria.
There's there's a lot of eggplant-looking guys in her
Yes.
in the Runeterra world, and I didn't know that until I looked through all the Riftbound cards. Like, wow.
Yeah, I think TFT also does a great job when it comes to like team up augments, for example, to get to like tell lore stories that way. And I remember, like the fated mechanic where you put people on top of each other and they do something.
That was 100%. For those of y'all that don't know, this was back in Inkborn Fables, back in set 11. There was a fated trait, and the inspiration from that trait came before the set was even like on paper. Our set lead was like, I want to make Set and Ophelio smooch. And I will now build a mechanic so they can smooch.
Thank you. Yes, that deserves claps.
And then, she made it so, and Set and Ophelios were both in that trait, and you could link them together, and in a very PC, very professional way, and they could smooch, and you could play them that way, and that is all she wanted, and she got it.
This goes back farther. Linda was the lead on this set, and she is very similar to Noemi, loves thematics. So it was her, Tori, and I kind of figuring out the world of Inkborn Fables. And when in one of the first meetings we had together, she walks in and she's like, all right, who do you want to smooch? And like, no context. And I was like, I need a lot of context before I answer that question. And then she had everyone on the team choose who their waifu or husbando was as part of working on the set. Yeah, very critical.
And it was
really your waifu?
I'm sorry?
Who is your waifu, Alex?
It is Ari.
Of
yeah.
course.
As my
No
desk
one
shows.
is shocked, I don't think.
Katie's trying to call me out, but her desk is just as degenerate as my desk is, so.
I have a normal desk.
Sure.
I'm fans of things.
We love 2D characters.
And I would like to express that.
There's a reason you haven't had a desk tour on.
No, it's hugely inappropriate. I mean, I think one of my favorite stories that our game director tells is how there are players out there that if, Kat and Garen, they're in the same set, they will always play them together, even if they're completely not related, they don't have a shared origin, they don't have a shared trait, they'll just play them together because that's what they're a fan of. And I think that's really cute, like TFT get to have that space to be, Runeterra fan fiction.
I actually forgot we did this, but in set 9, I don't think we put in a lot of Easter eggs, and they caught most of them. But we did have one where Garen and Kat did one less damage to each other, but I don't think anyone actually caught that one.
That's pretty cute. I mean, I love how similar all of these games are, and kind of the design process and how it looks different and how it looks the same. It means that we work really closely together. So, players might have noticed that TFT revealed a Riftbound card and their dev drop for Lore and Legends. I'm asking for the Riftbound team. Is this something that TFT is going to keep doing?
Well, we do this with Riftbound's team's permission, so
yes.
Of course.
Yeah.
We're not just jump scaring you guys, but yes, we will continue to do so. In fact, Space Gods, our dev drop comes out tomorrow morning, and you can expect a vaccine review there. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. We really hope that you've enjoyed our devs, all the other games reveals, and there's a lot more at PAX that we're a part of. We will have a Riot Games community meetup tomorrow at 1:30. And then for TFT, we have a Space Gods panel where we're going to talk about our new mechanic and TFT mechanics in general at 3:30. The League of Legends team will have a panel on crafting memorable champions Sunday at 1:30. I know there's so many things, guys. And then at noon on Sunday, we'll have a Riot Dev Pentathlon.
Yes.
Say that 10 times.
Riot Dev Pentathlon. Riot Dev
Thank you.
Pentathlon.
I was practicing backstage. It was like a tongue twister.
It's a big word. So, I mean.
But yeah, so TFT's newest set, Space Gods, comes out April 15th, and we hope to see you in the Convergence.
Go to your local game store because Riftbound's next set, Unleashed, releases in English May 8th. There's a special little preview event happening tomorrow over in our play space at the back of the convention hall. And then some Unleashed goodies are on display at our exhibition booth, and you can go take a peek at those. And then remember, the best time to get into either one of these games, this is a new set that's being released, which just so happens to be right now.
Yippee!
Wow, so thanks so much to our devs for joining us and answering all of our silly questions. And good game, guys.
GG's.
Thanks, everyone.